So today we are going to be talking about what an REU is, who should apply, and basically the best tips I have for applying to an REU. So right now I am at the University of Southern California as part of a REU for this summer. This specific program is called Snapshots of Chemistry and it is 10 weeks long. Before we get into tips and advice for applying to REUs, let's first talk about what is an REU and who should apply. So REU stands for Research Experience for Undergraduates, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a research experience for undergraduates. I know that there are a variety of REUs, some that you can partake in while taking your classes, some that are in-state, some that are part of your college, but there are also some that allow you to branch out, make new connections at different colleges. But overall, the REU experience is a rigorous experience for students who are interested in pursuing research. My understanding is that REUs allow you to work alongside PhD or postdocs and conduct very independent research. In comparison to working in a research lab like at your college, I believe an REU allows you to have a more independent approach. So an REU is a wonderful, just excellent way to expand your research experience and really get a feel for grad school. That being said, I believe that any REU experience depends first on the program that you apply to and second on the culture of the lab that you are working in. I know plenty of labs where people are very like 9 to 5, be here, don't be late, we don't talk, we don't take breaks, we are working. And I know labs that are a lot more lax and they do fun things together. One of my friends in the REU literally went and cleaned up a beach with her lab group last week. I think that it is important to look into the group, look into the type of people they are. You can learn a lot from a research group's website. You can see if there are pictures of all the researchers, if they do team dinners, things like that, because all of that is a very important part and you should know what kind of lab culture you're getting into. So, who should apply to an REU? If you are thinking of going to grad school, apply to an REU. 100% apply to REUs. Do it now, even if you're a rising third year, do it now. This is because it is a very grad school experience. You get to work alongside grad school students, like PhD and postdoc students, and kind of get a feel for what their work is like, what their day-to-day life is like, and that's what your future could potentially look like. So it's such a wonderful opportunity to be able to experience that in such a short-term, early setting. It's amazing, and if you are able to do that, I 100% think you should do that. Typically, I think that people apply to REUs before their senior year, but I don't think that there is any harm in applying early because obviously there's a chance that you will get in. The sooner the better, but obviously don't be discouraged. If you are applying to an REU as a rising second year and you don't get in, it is okay. These programs are catered towards older students because those are the students who are about to go into grad school if they so desire. Even if you think you are going to graduate with your bachelor's and go into the industry, or you're going to med school, 100%, if you have remotely any interest in research, I highly recommend doing an REU at least once because it will allow you to experience it for a short period of time, and you might love it and you might hate it because you will learn so much about yourself and it is such low stakes. Like, you get an out of this. You don't get an out of grad school. You do, but you lose money. Here, you get paid. So let's get into some advice for applying. First, I will be talking about advice before you apply. Start looking at some REUs. You can simply just Google REUs and look at the different ones. If it is chemistry research and you hate chemistry, maybe look at biology REUs because there's a wide variety of REUs, so not all just chemistry. Apply to REUs that you are interested in and look at those. Don't waste your time on things that you think you would be miserable doing research on. I also recommend that you look at some of the benefits. Do they cover housing? Do they cover your ticket? Do they pay you in stipend? All of these were true for the REU I applied to, and I cannot imagine having to come to California and find a place to live and not get paid on stipend. That would be absolutely terrifying, and I probably wouldn't have done this program if I had to survive on my own like that. So definitely look at the benefits of the program. My second thing would be to cast a wide net. If you are highly interested in, for example, biology research, but you have some interest in biochemistry, I don't think you should limit yourself to the narrow lens of just biology REUs, because like I said earlier, this is a way for you to discover more about yourself, to learn more about what your interests are, kind of explore your options, at least in this pre-applying period. And you might find things that you're actually very interested in, and you might not, and that's okay because you're just looking. I also really recommend actually looking into the professors that you could potentially be working with. This is because you don't want to be spending 2, 3, 4 months working with someone whose research you do not care about. Yeah, you might get paid, you might get to put this on your resume, but you will be miserable for those 4 months and you will not enjoy what you're doing. And this is not what an REU is about. You are there to make memories and to learn and to explore your interests. So take a look at the professors, read their website, read a publication or two. It really doesn't take that long. Don't do research on something you don't care about. That's not what this is about. That being said, this is a great opportunity to kind of expand and explore your interests. So if you see a professor who is doing research on something and you're just kind of like, that's a little exciting, but also I don't think I could see myself researching this in grad school, well, perfect. It's not grad school, it's 2 months of your life. This is exactly what I did. I'm a biochemistry major. I know that I want to do cancer cell research in the future, but I'm interested in chemistry. I think chemistry is cool. I think physical chemistry is cool, and now I am doing physical chemistry research. This is probably the biggest advice I could give you. Ask for letters of recommendation prior to the deadline of the REU application. This should go without saying. Most REU applications do require you to submit 2 to 3 letters of recommendation, sometimes 4, and it is important to know who to ask. So from that first year, start building those connections. An REU is typically in a laboratory setting, so you want to get letters of recommendation from people who know how you work in a lab setting. If you work in a research group, wonderful. Please ask your mentor, your PhD student, and your PI for a letter of recommendation because they know how you work in a lab. They can vouch for you. They can talk about you. If you blew up the lab, please do not ask them for a letter of recommendation. If you don't have a research group, that's totally fine. I did not. I asked my lab TA and my lab professor lady to write me a letter of recommendation because they also know how I work in a lab setting. Don't be worried if you don't have any research experience. Like I said, I did not have any research experience before this summer. There are still plenty of people. If your major is chemistry, biology, or biochemistry, you have lab experience and you have people who can vouch for you. So talk to your TA, talk to your mentor, talk to your PI, get to know them and build those connections and ask them for a letter of recommendation. All right, so let's get into the actual application while you're applying and after you apply. Applications vary based on the program, obviously, but I believe that most applications require you to submit your transcript, submit letters of recommendation, and submit a personal statement speaking of why you think you'd be a good fit, what you're interested in doing, what your long-term career goals are, and potentially who you would like to work with. After you have submitted that application, this is the #1 thing you should do. If you have an REU that you are really interested in, if you have a professor at that program who you really want to work with, email the professor. Build the connection right off the bat. Now, let me give you guys a demonstration. Can anybody tell me what professors like to hear about? Me. Yes. They like to hear that I am a rising 3rd year interested in doing research for my future resume. Incorrect. Professors actually like to hear how awesome their research is. They are people just like us, but they have dedicated their life to one thing, and they like to hear from people that that one thing is freaking awesome. So if you want to catch a professor's attention and the piles of email that that professor receives, email them and say, interest in your research. And then in that email, spend the first paragraph saying, I read this paper, and side note, actually read the papers and kind of go into what you found was interesting, what your opinion of the work was. Second paragraph, be like, I just applied to this REU and I listed you as the professor I really want to work with. Basically, I would love to work with you. I would love to be in touch. Would you be free for a Zoom call or something like that? Close off the email by saying, I completely understand if you're busy and would appreciate it if you could forward this email to a mentor or a PhD student or someone else who works in the lab, because professors will click forward. Make sure when you're emailing these professors, write unique emails to all of them. Please do not mass email these poor professors, because if you put them in an email with a professor that they hate, neither of them will respond to you. So make sure you're putting in the time and the effort to write these people actual emails that show your interests and show that you want to work with them, because once you build those connections, you have a Zoom meeting, you get to know them, you are kind of leading the way against everyone else who has applied to the REU. The last bit of advice I have is to whoever you've asked for a letter of recommendation, make sure you give them soft reminders and be like, hey, you agreed to write this recommendation letter for me. I just wanted to give you a heads up that it's due like in 2 weeks or whatever. And make sure you also bring up points that you want them to include in the letter. For example, be like, oh, by the way, do you remember that one time in lab when I suggested this and it was a really good idea? I would love if you included that in the letter. Sometimes professors or PI doesn't remember that specific occurrence, but if you kind of give their brain the kickstart, they will remember it and they will include it, and that is in your benefit. You know, you don't want some generic like, yeah, person A is really good at chemistry. But yeah, that is basically all I have for you. My final bit of advice is if you're considering doing an REU, do it, like definitely do it, at least apply. I generally think an REU is a wonderful experience. It lets you build your confidence in science, in presentation. It lets you build your skills in a way that I didn't even realize was possible. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and if you have any other lingering questions regarding REUs or research or grad school and all of that, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Good luck, you guys. Bye.